And welcome to episode 23 of the Brewed Sages, Stormbound players with a head for the game. I am Freeloader, and with me, as always, are my co-hosts Arthis and Sabaiku. Sabaiku, how's it going tonight?
Fantastic.
And Arthis, how are you doing?
I'm doing very great.
Well, we are the Brewed Sages, and as a reminder, you can always follow us at Brewed Sages on Twitter. Or for all of you who used to feel old, every time the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame announces their next list of inductees, our email address is thebrewedsages@gmail.com. Guys, new month, new league. Well, not for most of us yet, but we've got some community news about that. There was a race, not for everyone, but there was a small joust that's been organized by Kep, Arthis, and S-Gamer, the race to the new Hero League. Prizes for the top 3 participants to make it. Even if you don't participate in the race, you were able to watch the stream in Discord. Arthis, how did it happen? What happened?
So this one is really interesting. Okay, the original plan was to have people register for this like little event thing, so that they're eligible for these rewards. Because there could be some other person, random person in the world that gets the first place to Heroes League, but it's not even the end of the first day of the month yet. David, very skilled in the art of Rush, actually makes it as the world's first hero with a crazy ironclad rush deck. And what's really surprising is, well, for one, he wasn't actually a participant, but Berzosa decided to also give him some rewards because he actually had a very impressive achievement, and that was not only making it to the Heroes League in like 5 hours.
Under 4 hours.
Oh, under 4 hours. I think I remember Berzosa mentioned that he guessed 5 hours with his team, and he was actually the most optimistic guess. And David just went, much sooner than that. And the cherry on the cake here, yeah, is that David actually got 100% win rate all the way to the top there against the first day of season reset against those maxed ranked demons. He actually did it. What a mad lad. Because MKM, who also reached second place in the Heroes League. Very funny. He was multitasking. So he was talking about his experience. It was very, very fun. MKM taking the first place prize for this event that myself, Kep, and S-Gamer organized. He takes the first place prize for, like the 80 rubies. Yeah, he wasn't really close to like 100% win rate. So David really pulled up some crazy shenanigans there. Coming in third, fourth, and fifth place to Heroes League today, we got Wolifan, Oni, and Critical Pancake being the first 5 in the world to go to Heroes League. So very big congrats to these people. I know it's a really long journey to there, especially when, it's season reset. Everyone is here grinding, and all the Diamond 1 players are reset to Plat. It's a very rough experience.
Yeah, now those 5 can all play together and have fun and wait for everyone else to show up.
I'll be there sometime in a week or two.
It's very funny that they actually have to wait because when you're in Heroes League, guys, you're actually unable to match with bots. So you only match with players, but Heroes League still matches with players in Diamond. But, because of how quickly these people were, these are probably the only people in Diamond right now, plus a handful others. So matchmaking for them is going to be very difficult. They might have to like DM each other. It's like, hey, I want to play. You want to play? Let's go. Let's queue into Heroes together.
Hopefully they're all in similar time zones.
This is the only month where this will ever even be an issue, right? Because everybody who makes Heroes League this month, next month gets reset to Diamond. That means even if David decides to break his record and do it in an hour and 45 minutes next month, right away, he'll be able to queue into all the other players from the March Heroes League because they're all already in Diamond. So this is a temporary issue for those guys, but it won't take too long before it gets remedied, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely some growing pains in the first month here.
Oh, yeah.
But it's a one-time problem.
Exactly. So speaking of one-time problem and slight changes to the leagues as they are, Sabaiku, there's been some updates to the Heroes League.
Yep. One of the things that was talked about earlier was special avatars, and Brzosa debuted those on Discord. a special avatar for anyone who makes it into the Heroes League, and then a really nice looking crown avatar with the month and the year for whoever takes first place. So something to fight over for bragging rights for sure.
And just to clarify, it's not just being at first at any moment, right? It's finishing first.
Correct, finishing first in the month.
Okay. And Sheepyard said something about wanting to take an iterative approach to all of this, right?
They've talked about treating the Heroes League in the same way that they treat the rest of the balance changes. Make small tweaks here and there, fix problems as they arise. So we're looking forward to see what it looks like in a couple of months, to see if anything does need to be fixed, if they come up with any great ideas for improvements or updates. Really, what we see now in March, if you make it to the Heroes League, you'll be looking at the first version, not the final version. Things are going to continue to change and evolve, and we look forward to see where it goes.
And Arthis, it's not just changes to the league structure that's happening, right? There's also potentially, we hear word that maybe there's going to be some card changes coming up.
I mean, like we heard before, it's been pretty much confirmed that they're doing things like reworking Warfront and Heroic Soldiers, right? And we're all still very excited to hear what those are, and particular mechanic reworks do in terms of like the attack and defense mechanics that we already mentioned in episodes before. So we are still waiting on those. But other ones that kind of arose in conversation while Brazoza was hopping onto my stream in the Discord. Things like them considering potential changes for cards like Sly Boots and Excited Mousers, because the community is really saying how underwhelming those cards are for their abilities, and how something like Sly Boots has like an anti-synergy with its movement and the confusion. So there's a lot
Yeah.
of that kind of talk. But it's really hard to say whether or not they would be changed, and especially how they would be changed. But it's definitely up as a topic recently.
Yeah, well, two cards that we definitely highlighted, right, when the confusion changes happened and there was a little more experimentation. I certainly was among those who played with Excited Mousers and Sly Boots and Melodious Kittens, and were really just underwhelmed by the way the cards functioned, even in a deck that was geared around them. So
Right.
I do hope that this is something that they can fit in. I know they've got a busy schedule at Sheepyard. I know they've got a lot of plans, but taking care of these little things along the way would certainly help out in making the game just a little more interesting, and the collection a little more usable.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see some more of the cards that Sheepyard has introduced to the game, getting to see, I don't want to say maximum amounts of play, but at least, it'd be nice to run into them. Subaiku, there's also an ad-free battle pass being mentioned. What do you know about this?
Something that they're working on, some economy changes. Hopefully, when you buy the battle pass, the premium pass in the future, you'll be able to get an ad-free mobile version of the game, where you just earn extra coins per win. We don't know anything about how it will function, but it's something that they've been talking about and is rumored to come. So, as somebody who plays primarily on mobile, I don't play on Steam hardly ever. I'm very much looking forward to this. Another economy change that is being discussed is tiering gold per win based on the league that you're in, as a potential solution to incentivize players who stay down in platinum farming with their max level collection to move up in ranks a little bit. If you get 10 gold per win in platinum, but 20 gold per win in diamond, would that incentivize you to move up, even if your win rate goes down a little bit? I think it would for most people. So that's something that they're working on implementing, hopefully in the near future, also. And I say that not as somebody who plays primarily in platinum and gets farmed, but as somebody who plays primarily in diamond and wants to just see more players there and see queue times decrease.
Yeah, that would be really nice as well,
Yeah,
wouldn't it?
because I mean, just to elaborate on the little changes they were considering was like gold and below, you'd have the 10 gold, for win, and then you get the plus 10 from watching an ad. For platinum, it would be 15 plus 15. Diamond and heroes would be 20 plus 20. Like those are some serious gold changes. And just to like remind you guys, these are all changes in terms of like how fast you're gonna be gaining your gold, like in how many games you're playing. but it's not like the gold cap is going to increase. I'm not going to say that's a bad thing. For most people, this is a very good thing. There's only a small handful of people who really do go to the gold cap every single day, right? Because that's a lot of commitment.
That's a lot of time and a lot of games.
Right. So this actually helps so many players, and actually still helps those people who do grind the gold cap every day because they finish much faster, right? It's much nicer in that sense.
Provided their win rate doesn't drop too much as they move up in a league.
We
Yes.
shall see if these farmers actually have this skill. But anyway,
Oh,
take that with a grain of salt,
Hey!
guys. I'm sorry.
Ooh.
But the thing I'm excited about is especially for like the Diamond and Heroes League. Like this very small percentage of the player base that's actually in Diamond and Heroes League. Queue times tend to be like quite long, like very long, yeah. So now even with the long queue times, it makes it worth your time for actually winning because you get so much more gold now. So that makes it so much nicer, you know. It's a really nice quality of life type of deal.
makes it a little less likely at the top levels that you'll run into a bot. Makes it a little less likely at gold and platinum that you run into a farmer. Hopefully makes the experience better for everybody along the ladder.
Yeah, I think that's the big takeaway from this, right? Recognizing that there are, I don't want to call them inappropriate behaviors because it's not an inappropriate behavior if the economy is set up in a way that incentivizes certain behaviors. Well, then it's just not, it's just kind of on the devs to say, okay, well, let's change the economy in a way that incentivizes behaviors that we want to have happen instead. So if they do recognize this is reducing the level of fun that a portion of the player base is experiencing, all for it, right? Like 100% do this. This sounds great.
Exactly. And as somebody who does not come close to the gold cap most days, I would certainly appreciate a little uptick in my resource accumulation. Earning more gold per win gets me more upgrades, makes more decks viable, makes me have more fun the whole way too.
Oh yeah, I'll always take more gold, please. All right, guys. Let's move from upcoming changes to a previous change. We've now had Temple of Space for 2.5 days.
Wow, that's a long time.
I know. Arthis, have you been experimenting with it?
I played a little bit, but it's just really hard to play with how low leveled mine is. Because right now it's level 3, and I spent a lot of fusion stones just to get it to level 3. I'm a bit frustrated that I spent that much. Not because the card's bad or anything. It's just I just can't play it the way I want to because how underleveled it is. But it's definitely a really cool card, and there's a lot of optimization that can come into play that I'm seeing. Because one of the things I noticed was I think I'm based on my experience. It seems that my original theory crafting before the card released about investing on a temple of space on your second row as early as you can, it's actually really good for you in most cases because it really defends that area of the board constantly. Not to mention, it's still very easy to set up aggression with the diagonal placements and bypassing units just for 3 mana. It's pretty cool because I mean I posted some of my screenshots of like when this was really helpful. And I've been talking a lot with Berzosa. He actually tends to like just do the full 6 mana combo most of the time, but I'm more theory crafting into like how to set up the card. Both very different play styles.
I actually found it really useful. I had the 15 tower quest. And it turns out when you have a tower that behaves like Ami, it's fantastic for playing against a bot and just cycling through as often as possible. If there is one criticism that I would put out there, it's just the legendary rarity level of the card. I think, and this is my personal opinion, this card is the most exciting card Sheepyard has introduced to the game. It's a brand new effect. It is just so bizarrely like different way of playing the game and thinking about the game. I love it. I think it's fantastic. And the only thing that I don't want to say sad about, because I'm not sad. I'm excited about the card. But the only thing that's a little bit of a downer about the card is just the rarity level of it is going to make it very slow to get adopted. And I would love for this card to just be seeing a ton of play because of just how novel and exciting and fresh the games feel when either you're playing it or playing against it. Because in both cases, both players have to now deal with a new set of rules about how the game is going to be played, right? I don't know. I don't want to be too down on the card because I think the card's brilliant. I love the card, but even at an epic, I think it would be easier to see more adoption. I'm just worried we're not going to see too much of it for another month or two.
Well, I guess that just shows how excited I really am for the very, very likely promotional offer of like a big bundle of all the temples once they're all released. Uh, Kitty has said it's most likely going to happen after someone asked about it. So
Oh.
you can tell I'm preparing my best card in the game, the credit card, right?
We're going to slide from here into the sort of the main topic of the day. And I'm going to propose sort of a concept, right? And that is that card games, any card game like Stormbound, Magic the Gathering, Hearthstone, any of them, they are only enjoyable. I don't want to say only enjoyable, but a huge portion of the enjoyment you get out of them comes from drama, right? And drama is about the fact that being quote unquote in the lead in the mid game doesn't necessarily mean the game is decided yet, right? Like the swing turn, the comeback from behind, sort of part of the game is what makes card games like this exciting. Otherwise, you might as well just play like Go Fish, right, or chess, something that is just very sort of mathematical. And maybe that's being a little too harsh to chess, but it's being certainly fair to Go Fish. I've played a lot of it lately, I can tell you. And so every faction has its strengths and its weaknesses within that kind of drama, right? Like there are times where I will be well ahead against a swarm player, let's say, right? And they manage to just knock me down to like 4 or 5. And I recognize, even though I've got complete control of the board, if they've got Vindicators, this game, there's drama, there's excitement. You don't know who's going to win yet, and so those kinds of swing turns from each of the factions exist, and at different times during just the 1 year, 1 month tenure that Sabaiku and I have had, we've seen some of those swing turns be heavily nerfed or changed. I'm looking at Queen Bucks. That was a insane swing turn where you could have the majority of the board. Most of the units are yours, and then suddenly Queen Bucks Dreadfons comes out, and the board looks very different the following turn. We saw that get nerfed. We saw Aaron get nerfed. We've seen linked golems, which was kind of a very early swing turn from Ironclad. But within the idea that these kinds of turns are necessary, we don't want them to go away completely. We don't want cards like like Queen to just disappear. There's also the question of, are some of them unfairly balanced, right? And this is kind of the catch-22 of trying to introduce these. If you have these kinds of turns, you create drama, but then people who are losing can still win a game. That should be okay, unless it's getting ridiculous, right? And then it doesn't matter what you do for your first 5 or 6 turns. If your opponent RNGs into the right thing, the game's decided despite any skill. Now, Arthis and Sabaiku, I ask you this question. Over the last couple of months, we have seen Ironclad on the top of our meta report in terms of play amount, play frequency. If you consider the meta report a relatively accurate representation of what most of the player base is choosing to play, and if we assume that they're choosing to play that because the power turns for that faction are better than the alternatives, Ironclad's been up there quite a bit lately. In fact, it hasn't been dethroned yet. We're hoping that it might be this month, but we don't know yet. It's still too early to tell. What do we think? Overall, how do we like how Sheepyard is gently making a lot of adjustments to the game instead of sort of making sure that Ironclad left, right? Early on, they did with Winter, and boy, did Winter go away the following month. Job well done.
Oh man.
That might have been too much, though, right? And so their current tact tends to be gentle nudging of the power level of the power turns downward. I'm looking at Hunter's Vengeance right now. I'm looking at Fort Tonic. I'm looking at linked golems. These we've seen adjusted over the last couple of months. Aaron no longer can play Gift. What do you guys think? I'll start with Sabaiku. How do you think the game is being balanced? Do you like it?
Yeah, I will say I do like it. I like that they're working with a light touch. I think that they learned from the early changes to winter where they really did just destroy the play rate for quite some time until people started figuring out new decks that worked. I think winter is actually in a pretty good place now, although admittedly it took some changes to the other factions for winter to get to a good place also. But
Hmm.
people are
Hmm.
finding decks that don't utilize Frozen Core that are okay stalling an extra turn to play Gift on 8 instead of on 7, and it's working out well. I appreciate the light touch. Um, I do think that it was appropriate that they hit Ironclad a lot because, to your point about drama comes from doing something powerful with your turns, right? Like that's enjoyable. It was coming too early with Ironclad. It was coming with linked golems, and you had too many cards that you could combo with it to make it consistent. It was coming too early with Fort Tonic because you had unstable costing only 2 mana and providing a hefty amount of strength also for only 2 mana. So it was almost guaranteed to survive a turn. So you could set up that unstable build and know that you'd be able to play a unit, 2 units, and Fort Tonic afterward. Now, hopefully, with that change to Fort Tonic, knock on wood, I haven't been seeing it in my play today, at least on the first day of the month. And it seems to have really slowed down those ironclad decks to the point where I've been playing Winter Control and I can handle it. Not every time, but that's okay. I'm not supposed to handle it every time. Just the fact that I can handle it some of the time is a vast improvement.
Okay, and Arthis, what do you think about the sort of gentle touch in these nerfs?
I know we say gentle, but I know there are a lot of people who are, big fans of these really strong cards, saying that these are like card killers, right? Things like a 50% increase in mana, right, from 2 to 3. Like that's actually big. A lot of people are still overreacting. I don't know, maybe overreacting. It's debatable. That Chestnuts got murdered at level 5, which low key I agree with, but I know it's still a really good card. It's just people I think fail to see it.
Yeah, Chestnuts got murdered, but also they deserved it.
Yeah, they definitely deserve that. Much
Well,
like
that remains to be seen yet. Chestnuts was one of the few cards I think that when winter is really strong, it's one of the cards that a lot of players go back to or used to go back to be able to beat strong winter decks. And if winter does come out on top of all of this and looks very strong, if Ironclad can't get there, there's going to be a conversation about we need chestnuts back.
I mean, I still see it. I actually still see it. I love that it's
Really?
so much easier to deal with. Yeah, actually, I've countered it pretty nicely now.
Yeah,
Because it doesn't
shocking.
heal as much.
Exactly.
There's actually counterplay to the card now. Can you believe?
Well, the card doesn't do anything. I mean, so I did try playing it, and it doesn't like even I played it. I got 2 pings off it. Felt very accomplished, and my opponent managed to clear it after 2 pings because it was down to 4 health, and he just never really worried about it. The rest of the game just kind of played around it because he's just like, well, look, if it's 4 points of damage every time, I don't care. Anyway,
Yeah.
but back to the question. Back to the question. Ignoring chestnuts, the other nerfs, I would say, like because Shadowfen wasn't top dog in the meta report anyway. How do you feel about where Ironclad is right now? Do you feel like it's been pushed into the pack, or do you think like, well, it's still a little bit of a stronger faction than the rest, but it's much more manageable?
I definitely think it's actually pushed closer to the rest of the pack.
Do you
Because
think it's in the
Mike's
pack or still ahead?
probably still slightly ahead, but we don't really know yet because we don't like people are still used to the same playstyle of 2 mana, Fortonic, 2 mana Hunter's Vengeance. They still kind of play it in that way, which they probably shouldn't. But because of that, it's like it's hard to really differentiate. In many cases where they do play like Fortonic or Hunter's Vengeance or something like that, I would compare it to the time where okay, what if it was 2 mana there? Oh, that means they could have played Gifted Recruits here. I know they have it in hand, but they actually can't. They have to end their turn now. Like these are big changes in terms of like bringing down their power level and how fast they can just develop that power turn for the rest of the game, I do like it because I've actually seen some Fortonic, and I gotta say it really wasn't as scary anymore because they are less likely to actually set up for it because it's a lot more mana now.
Yeah.
Overall, my opinions on the way Shipyard has been approaching the balances, I do like how most of the time they're approaching it very softly, like gently, as you put it, right? Because
Hmm.
honestly, the last thing you want is like a big shock in the player base, right? If something was really big, that really affected so many people, whether good or bad, I'm pretty sure either of those cases are actually unhealthy for a game's progress, right? Because it's not like when something is nerfed gently and it wasn't enough, it's not like it will never get nerfed again, right? It's just nice that the way they approach it, they have the small changes, right? Small changes compared to like what people have suggested in the channels like card balancing. They're very small compared to those suggestions, and
I'm
it's
sure.
yeah. um I just want to say that like because of the small suggestions, it's nice because they really get to build the time scale to actually observe the data regarding the card, right? The win rate, the usages, and seeing how much different it is from before. And what if they were lucky? What if that small nerf actually was the sweet spot? It would be really bad if they nerf or buffed something too much and they just skip the sweet spot by a bit and they have to change it again. If anything, smaller changes, the better, right?
Exactly. So you look at chestnuts, right? Like chestnuts were nerfed in a previous round. The strength was decreased, and the ability was not changed. And it turns out at level 5, it was really the ability that was making it overpowered. So they came back in and adjusted it again.
Yeah.
If they had done that right off the bat, it would have been, well, we accidentally did it a little too much, but we're not going to go back and rebuff the card because that would just drive everybody crazy. If you nerf something too
Yeah.
far, it's very hard to go back and make it stronger. But if you nerf something a little bit, it's easy to tweak it and nerf it a little bit more. If you buff something too much, it's easy to nerf it and bring it back.
Right. As an example, what they did with Void Surges, right? They gave it this really big buff because it was so underused, underpowered, and it actually was too much. There was a little outrage, right? And yeah, they brought it back
Absolutely.
down again. Like we don't really want that, right? We don't really
No,
want that kind of like drastic changes in the game, right? Especially with the way with how harsh the Stormbound economy is. Anything you're investing, like a lot of time, a lot of resources, and you're just seeing the way cards operate just like going left and right. It's just very bad experience for an investment type of game, right?
yeah, exactly. Like, I don't want the pendulum swinging too far in either direction because either it's too powerful, I'm gonna invest a ton of resources in it, and then it gets changed and I'm bummed out about it, and I'm looking at your experience with Hairy Chestnuts there, Freeloader.
Yeah, I
But I
know.
don't want it too far in the other direction where it's not powerful and I ignore it and leave it at level 1, and now all of a sudden, oh no, now it's gonna get changed and I gotta put extra resources into this card that I haven't even thought about for the last 6 months.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's the delicate balance that as game designers you always have to kind of be careful about is and I've been very critical in the past about Blizzard's handling of Hearthstone of just giant crazy power cards being introduced to the game that force you to spend money and resources because you recognize that it's super powerful. Everyone else is going to have it. You got as soon as it goes live, everybody's going to be playing it, and then within a day or two, everyone everyone's got it, and Blizzard comes out and says, "Guys, too powerful. Sorry, we're getting a lot of complaints. We're going to nerf it." And you're like, "Wait, no, I just got it. I just spent all this money on it. Let me play with it for a week." So it does create this sort of bad experience for everyone because the meta gets very overrun with the card when it gets too powerful, and I think that happened a little bit with Void Surgers when it first got the buff. I think we saw it everywhere. I know I saw it in a couple of rush decks. But yeah, in general, I think that the more gentle movement of cards, nudging buffs and nudging nerfs, kind of a thing, is nice. The one downside to it, though, is it can prolong a meta after it's gotten stale. And so one of my concerns is just March is going to see Ironclad still on top. And that was going to be the next question I wanted to ask both of you guys is, we need to help our listeners out. Lots of things got nerfed. What's good? What should they be playing? What is still very powerful? I will say from my experience today, I played a lot more on day one than I normally do. And what I saw today was predominantly Ironclad. No Fort Tonic. I did not see much Fort Tonic at all. I don't think I saw it. And Winter Pact. And in Winter Pact, I still see Hunter's Vengeance quite a bit. And that Winter Pact deck that I'm seeing mostly, actually, I'll give a shout out because they're all variants off of what Woolifan used to make it to the Heroes League today. They're, they've got Gift, they've got Ulf, but aside from that, there's no Frozen Core, and it's utilizing Giovanna with Icicle Burst and Frost Hexers as the two freezes in the deck to just try to create swing turns throughout, like smaller swing turns where you're putting a decent sized dragon down, removing a unit from the board, and then getting to play more. But then the big swing turn is that Gift Ulf turn. What do you guys think? I'll start. We'll go back to Sabaiku. Sabaiku, what feels powerful still to you? I know it's very early, but if we can give our listeners any sort of advice or direction.
Yeah, so I've been playing primarily Winter Pact this day. I was going to say this month, but this day so far.
Mm-hmm.
And it does still feel good. It can really still hang with most of the decks. I've gotten outrushed. I've gotten outvalued. It's been a struggle as I've been trying to optimize a deck that works for my collection, but Hunter's Vengeance is still absolutely powerful at 3 mana. I have no regrets about putting in my deck, but it feels fair. There are definitely times when I wished, oh man, if this were just 2 mana, I could play this and then follow it up with Westwind or whatever. But I think that it's balanced now. It's a good point for the card. I've been facing Ironclad. No real Fort Tonic, still a lot of buffs. Definitely have to watch out for Hearthguards more. I see that being played a little bit more.
Me too.
Which is, that's a nice replacement, and that's a powerful swing turn for Ironclad, right? As the only 2 mana structure in the game with Unstable, you can just go Unstable Hearthguards, and for 8 mana, if you still have your front, you can put a big chunk of damage into the opponent's base. I've been playing a lot of Swarm Rush, still perfectly viable. Forgotten Souls is just stupidly good. Zuri-based decks with Dark Harvest can definitely get a lot done on the board. So those are all really powerful turns. And I haven't been seeing a ton of Shadowfen, but it's really been eating my lunch when I do, because Cordia is ridiculously good, because Butchers is a ton of burst damage, because Claxi is a ton of value. So I think all of the factions really do have good swing turns, good value or tempo generating turns that makes what they do feel powerful. But I'm not feeling like there's anything that's overmatched. When I'm playing a control deck, I don't look at these turns and think, well, the game is over. I just can't keep up with this. So I'm actually, at least one day in, really happy with the state of the game right now.
Ooh, okay. So you're going to take the Lake Wobegon tact, and all the decks are above average?
All the decks are viable. All the decks are fun.
Yeah, no, but I'm asking what's
Play and play
strongest.
against. Well, my deck is strongest. I made it myself.
Okay, and Arthis, what do you think is where do you think the meta is going to shake out in terms of, when we're looking at the meta report in two weeks? Where do you think most people are going to realize the strongest decks are, and which factions are you going to see rise to the top?
I can't say I agree with Sabaiku, but that's a very hard question to.
Oh, for sure. No, for sure.
I
But
mean,
everyone's struggling with it, so we can help them with it.
yeah. I don't know, to be honest. I know there's a rise of Ubes now, Ubes 5 particularly, because of the Chestnut's defenestration. But but
Please don't nerf that next. Please don't nerf that. I'm literally saving up my fusion stones for it. Don't
I'm
nerf
honestly,
Rubus.
as much as I'd be very sad for Freeloader, I think it would be extremely comical if that happened. But anyway, I want to explore a different perspective about swing turns being too powerful or not. And that's because I know with what Subaiku said, like how there are swing turns where he didn't feel like was too strong or anything like that, depending on the decks you play, of course. There are definitely some swing turns where they are too much, even as a control deck or a rush deck. For example, for my experience, a max level Klaxi is absolutely ridiculous. When they can pull that off, albeit really late in the game, right? When they do pull it off, it's game over. It's almost impossible for me to get back. And a lot of people might say, like, oh my gosh, these swing turns shouldn't exist in the game because it's almost as if the game's decided. Well, for one, it happened really late in the game. But the other thing is, I think it's totally fine if there were mechanics like this that even happened earlier in the game. The only thing that would be worrisome is if this mechanic or swing turn was actually abused in terms of like the frequency it's played. I think the better way to think about if something was too powerful or if it should stay in the game or not is not only like its power, like on paper against like other factions or other counters. I think it's also nice to actually consider the frequency of it being played. For example, Fort Tonic we know is extremely strong, but what made it just unacceptable was how often we saw it. As a
Well, but
as a counterpoint,
oh,
I know also about the extreme swing turn with Siren or Ulf, okay? But these are mostly happening on the extremely high levels, like the max levels, meaning that not a lot of people can actually pull this off because there's only a small handful who actually has the levels. Although I would honestly say Ulf and Siren have the most powerful swing turns in the game, just because of how not as common it is in the meta, it makes it acceptable in a sense.
okay. I mean, I will agree. You see Fort Tonic more often than you see Siren, but if we consider the player base like a market, right, like an investment market, the market always finds the most efficient payoff. That's what markets are good for, right? So if you believe that the market experiments and tries different things and slowly but surely comes to an agreement that this is the most efficient, most effective payoff. Blaming the market for a card, like the market's going to find the one that's most powerful. When a card is the most, or pair of cards, whatever, when a swing turn, when a power turn for a faction is the most effective play there is in the game to win, then the majority of people are going to play it. Blaming the player base for it, that's just naturally what's going to happen. The card's too powerful. That's why it's being played so much.
With that idea, yes, it makes sense. It's just that unfortunately with Stormbound it's really hard to level their collection.
Oh, for
Right.
sure, right.
Yeah, unfortunately. But yeah, that analogy definitely has some strong implications on whether the kind of value or mechanics certain cards have, certain swing turns have in the game, whether they should be in the game or not is a very difficult question to definitely tackle as Sheepyard, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was wondering, like, what if we explored this a bit, this idea of frequency and power together in tandem? What if we add like a little new data graph? I'm not sure if this is gonna happen, but for the meta report, if we can combine both the power score and the frequency score together as like multiplicative properties, I wonder what kind of graph it's gonna look like. Seeing like what if like Winter Rush actually happens to be super strong, but no one's playing it? Then it's gonna fall like in some weird spot in the graph. I think that would be really nice to explore.
There is a graph like that from HS Replay, I think, and they break it into quadrants, is what happens. So, and there's a straight line that goes from bottom left to top right, and anything on that line is being played at the appropriate level of frequency for its power. Things above that line are being overplayed for its power, and things below the line are being underutilized based on its perceived power. We could try that. I'll tell you what. I will go and experiment with that, Arthis, and if it makes any sense on the other end, it doesn't look like an MC Escher thing. Yeah, we'll give it a shot.
My concern with this is that, comparing it to Hearthstone stats, like there's just a lot more data available. Right now, we're working off of our volunteers tracking their own games. We're working off of a very small sample of the meta. So I hesitate to take too much from it. because we know that it's flawed. We don't have access to more data. We're doing the best we can with what we've got, but unless we're going to start some massive data charting project where we ask thousands of Stormbound players to contribute, it's really going to be very difficult for us to properly, accurately assess frequency of play
Yeah, for
and
sure.
win rate.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And also that creates, I'll warn Sheepyard of sharing that kind of data. It creates a downward spiral where the meta learns to stabilize faster and faster. The availability of that data as soon as a new patch or expansion comes out means that within hours, people have figured out what's actually working and what's not. And the meta solidifies and stops being fluid and stops changing and becomes stale within the matter of days post a release of cards or changes. So I'm thankful we don't have that kind of data because I enjoy the continual experimentation that I see from my opponents. In that case, I guess I'm kind of happy that we are where we are. Arthis, we'll leave this conversation, but if you had to say right now what you think is going to be on top of the meta report coming out this month, what faction do you expect to see there in terms of most often played?
Often played. Oh my gosh, I still think it's Ironclad.
Mm.
It's
Okay,
so
I do too. I do too. All right, so guys, let's move on from there and discuss the card of the week. I'm very excited about this week because I finally got to pick one. Faithless Prophets. Since this is my card, I'll let Sabaiku give us the stats on it.
Faithless Prophets, a Shadowfen rare, 3 mana. Its strength at level 1 is 5, and then it increases from there to 6, 7, 8, and 10. So very strong for 3 mana, and it has 1 movement. The reason why it's so strong for its mana cost is because of its unique effect. After surviving damage, convert itself to fight for the enemy. Freeloader, you pick the card, start us off.
So I love this card. This was one of my earliest level 3s, and then for whatever reason, it stayed level 3 until yesterday. I just upgraded it to 4, which is part of the reason why I wanted to talk about it. But I love this card because of its odd uses. I like to put a unit or two on my opponent's baseline and then protect those by putting the Faithless Prophets on the edge that my opponent can attack into. Because if they attack into it with a weaker unit, they'll convert the Faithless Prophets, and then the Faithless Prophets sit there like a tower, preventing any of the other units of mine on the other side of it from being attacked. That's my favorite play with it. I know David G used to love to put it on his opponent's baseline by trading into something, so it would convert and be on his opponent's baseline, and then he'd use Copper Skin to poison it, so that at the start of his opponent's next turn, it would take a poison tick, convert again, and then go into base.
I like that you said used to there because he did that to me 2 days ago.
I mean, it's still great. Yes, these are definitely one of the coolest interactions with Faithless, having it, poisoning it so that it walks into the enemy base. Because, yeah, the poison actually triggers before the unit movement actually works. So it's really funny because it converts for the enemy and then it moves backwards into your base, dealing a lot of damage. And I know, like Freeloader said, David, quote unquote, used to do this. I know he also used to do this with Toxac back then, back when it only did, 5 or less damage. Now with Toxac doing more, it's a little harder to pull off, right? But yeah, it is still a really, really flashy way to end or seal games. And I would say one of my favorite things about Faithless Prophets is just how many edge cases this card alone puts into the game. How many bugs it is the sole reason of, the sole like cause of. It's just like for example, when my extreme testing of Temple of Focus, I was just like, oh yeah, you know what? We have an entire section dedicated to Faithless Prophets. We're gonna see how this card works with Temple of Focus. And it's just bug after bug after bug. Faithless Prophets looking like they're facing you, but then they're blue, or they're completely like not even on the board, but they're actually there. Like you can't see them. It's just, it's such a whack card. It's so clunky. It's so amazing.
I love it. The mechanic is so unique. You can do so many weird things with it. I mean, just in general, it has a high raw strength value, so you can really use it defensively in so many cases where you would just like slot execute into your deck. But then you get to do all these weird, fun things with it too. You can try to tuck it in on your opponent's base and protect it, so it does a huge chunk of damage. You can use it to protect your other units, like Freeloader said. Um, I've often tried to really keep it at level 3 or 4 so that I can trade into something on my opponent's baseline. It survives at 1, and then the butchers can go right through it for the lethal. Like that's one of my fun lethals with Faithless Prophets.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I'd say one of my although this isn't necessarily like practical in terms of rank, but my main use of it is when I have a convert quest. Because converting your faithless prophets actually counts towards the quest. So you know what I do? I just I put it on the board safely, I poison it, and then it's just gonna convert back and forth, back and forth, back and forth every single turn. Just moving up and down, and then my quest counter is just ticking, and it's just like, heck yeah, this is great. Every time the enemy's front line is reset, but also not reset. It's such a fun game experience, in my opinion. But because I don't have it at level 5, I would love to have it at level 5 to really like use it to its fullest potential, right? At 10 strength, that is really nice. But it's just crazy the way this mechanic works and the animation itself. It's really wonky. That's my favorite thing about it.
Yeah, it's just a really fun card to play, right? Like it makes you think about the game differently, and it makes your opponent kind of have to make some determinations as well that are a little outside the norm, which is why I really enjoy it. So guys, that's gonna end the main portion of this episode, which means it's time for me to remind you to please contact us, preferably in our channel at a Stormbound Discord server. But you can also find us on Twitter at Brewed Sages and always email us at thebrewedsages@gmail.com. We also just want to remind you we have an additional way for you to reach out and support us. We have just started our Gumroad account about a month ago. You can come on and become patrons of our work. Check out the link in our Stormbound Kitty page. This week, we didn't hear from anyone. This is the first time in a while where no one really gave us a question. But that's probably a good thing because we've gone a little long anyway. So let's just say that's going to do it for this episode. For Arthis and Sabaiku, I am Freeloader. We are the Brewed Sages, reminding you to stay hydrated.